What if the most shocking part of the UFO conversation isn't what might be flying in the sky, but how little certainty exists on the ground? That's how Joe Rogan opened it. No dramatic music, no wild claims about alien bodies in desert hangars, no breathless, they're here moment, just a pause. And then something changed, and people aren't paying attention to what that change actually means. That sentence alone was enough to light up social media. But what followed is what made it explode. Because Rogan didn't come out swinging with extraterrestrial declarations. He did something more unsettling. He treated the topic seriously, calmly, methodically, and he framed it not as a science fiction fantasy, but as a government transparency problem wrapped in a national security puzzle. And that's what shocked fans. He began by pointing out a cultural shift that's impossible to ignore. 10 or 15 years ago, if a public figure started talking about UFOs, now officially labeled UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena, the reaction was predictable. Eye rolls, late-night jokes, X-Files theme music. It lived in the fringe. It belonged to conspiracy forums and grainy VHS tapes. Now, the Pentagon has acknowledged investigations into unexplained aerial incidents. Congress has held hearings. Navy pilots have testified publicly about encounters. NASA has commissioned studies. Intelligence officials have spoken under oath about classified knowledge. That's not fringe. That's institutional. We didn't just wake up one day and decide UFOs are serious, Rogan said. The government changed its posture. And posture changes mean something. He carefully walked listeners through the timeline. In 2017, major news outlets reported that the U.S. Department of Defense had quietly funded a program to investigate unidentified aerial encounters. Since then, declassified videos captured by Navy pilots have circulated widely. Objects accelerating rapidly, moving against wind patterns, performing maneuvers that don't fit conventional aircraft models. He didn't say they were alien. He asked something simpler and more unsettling. If our best pilots with our best radar systems don't know what they're looking at, he said, what does that mean? That question hit harder than any alien claim could, because uncertainty in advanced airspace is not trivial. It's not entertainment, it's defense. He explained that when trained military personnel report objects exhibiting rapid acceleration without visible propulsion, sudden directional changes without signs of inertia, and movement patterns that defy traditional aerodynamics, you don't automatically leap to extraterrestrials, but you also don't shrug it off. The possibilities narrow to a few categories. Either it's sensor error, or it's classified domestic technology, or it's advanced foreign technology, or it's something else entirely. Each option carries implications. If it's sensor error, that suggests vulnerabilities in military systems. If it's classified domestic tech, that means extreme compartmentalization within defense infrastructure. If it's foreign tech, that suggests a strategic gap. And if it's none of those, that's where speculation begins. Rogan made it clear he wasn't filling that blank with aliens. He emphasized repeatedly that unidentified means exactly that, unidentified. It does not mean extraterrestrial. It means unexplained within current knowledge. But the fact that unexplained phenomena are being tracked, documented, and formally reviewed by federal agencies is itself unprecedented. And that's what he wanted people to focus on. Forget little green men, he said. Why did the stigma drop? For decades, military personnel avoided reporting UFO encounters out of fear of ridicule. Suddenly, official channels encourage reporting. That shift didn't happen by accident. He speculated, cautiously, that either the frequency of encounters increased or the need for transparency became unavoidable, or both. And then he pivoted to secrecy. Governments classify information for reasons. Advanced aerospace projects, stealth aircraft, satellite capabilities. History shows that what looks impossible in one decade becomes standard in the next. The SR-71 Blackbird, stealth bombers, early drone programs, all were secret until they weren't. So secrecy alone doesn't equal aliens, Rogan said. But secrecy without clarity creates informational vacuums, and vacuums get filled. He talked about how human psychology reacts to incomplete information. When official statements are vague, we don't know what it is, but it's not a threat. That ambiguity fuels narrative expansion. People project onto the unknown. Some assume extraterrestrial intelligence. Some assume hidden weapons programs. Some assume bureaucratic incompetence. Each interpretation says more about the interpreter than the object. Rogan warned listeners about jumping to conclusions. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Grainy video clips don't constitute proof of interstellar visitation. But dismissing credible witnesses outright also undermines serious inquiry. There's a difference between skepticism and arrogance, he said. Skepticism asks questions. Arrogance shuts them down. He described listening to Navy pilots recount encounters in controlled airspace. These are individuals trained to identify aircraft, atmospheric conditions, and threats. When multiple sensors corroborate visual sightings, the data becomes harder to ignore. But again, harder to ignore doesn't equal alien. It equals anomaly, and anomalies demand investigation. He then addressed whistleblower claims that have surfaced in recent years. Individuals with prior security clearances alleging that the government possesses more information about unidentified phenomena than has been publicly disclosed. Rogan was careful here. Claims are not confirmation. Allegations are not proof. Sworn testimony carries weight, but it is not self-validating. If someone testifies under oath about classified recovery programs, one of several things must be true. They are mistaken, they were misinformed, they are exaggerating, or they are telling the truth. Each possibility has implications. Rogan didn't resolve it, he highlighted it. And that ambiguity is what unsettled people. Because ambiguity in national security discussions is uncomfortable. We prefer certainty. We prefer clean explanations. But the honest answer, in many cases, is incomplete. He then zoomed out beyond hardware and radar. What if the bigger story, he said, is how institutions handle uncertainty? Governments face a dilemma. Reveal too much and risk exposing defense vulnerabilities. Reveal too little and erode public trust. Public trust is already fragile. When institutions say, "We don't know what this is, but don't worry," it triggers suspicion. Not necessarily because something sinister is happening, but because reassurance without detail feels thin. Rogan suggested that the real shock isn't that UFOs exist. It's that serious institutions are openly acknowledging unexplained phenomena without offering definitive explanations. That middle ground is rare in modern discourse. Everything is either debunked or confirmed. But here, unresolved. He explored the cultural impact. If confirmed non-human intelligence were discovered, it would be the most transformative event in human history. Religion, science, geopolitics, economics, all recalibrated overnight. But he emphasized repeatedly, we are nowhere near that. Speculation leaps faster than evidence, and speculation spreads faster than official reports. He also warned about the monetization of mystery. The UFO topic generates enormous engagement. Content creators amplify extraordinary interpretations because extraordinary interpretations travel further. But engagement does not equal accuracy. He challenged listeners to differentiate between curiosity and credulity. Curiosity asks, "What is this?" Credulity answers, "I know what it is," without sufficient evidence. He then returned to something subtle but powerful. Even if every UAP case ultimately turns out to be misidentified drones, atmospheric phenomena, classified tech, or sensor artifacts, the process matters. The willingness of institutions to acknowledge uncertainty matters. The destigmatization of reporting anomalies matters, because science advances through anomalies. He reminded listeners that throughout history, unexplained observations have sometimes led to paradigm shifts, but far more often, they've led to better measurement and refined understanding. He wasn't promising revolution. He was advocating openness. And that's what shocked fans most. Not that he claimed government secrets, but that he treated the topic like an adult conversation instead of a joke. He didn't shout. He didn't proclaim invasion. He didn't mock skeptics. He occupied the uncomfortable middle. Unknown doesn't mean extraterrestrial, but it also doesn't mean imaginary. That sentence, or variations of it, circulated widely. Because modern discourse rarely tolerates uncertainty, you're expected to take a side, believe fully, dismiss fully. But ambiguity requires patience, and patience doesn't trend easily. Rogan ended the discussion not with a conclusion, but with a challenge. Pay attention to how institutions evolve on this topic. Watch how language shifts. Observe how transparency increases or contracts. Because sometimes the most important story isn't what's in the sky, it's how power responds to not knowing. The episode went viral not because he exposed hidden alien archives. It went viral because he exposed how uncomfortable we are with mystery. In a world where technology accelerates, where artificial intelligence evolves rapidly, where geopolitical tension simmers, where trust fluctuates, The idea that something unexplained exists within monitored airspace rattles assumptions. But rattled assumptions are not evidence of extraterrestrials. They are evidence of incomplete knowledge. And incomplete knowledge, handled responsibly, can be productive. Handled irresponsibly, it becomes mythology. Rogan chose the former. He left listeners with a paradox. We may be living in the most technologically advanced era in human history, and yet there are still things we don't fully understand. That's not weakness, that's reality. The shock wasn't alien spacecraft, it was intellectual humility. And in a culture addicted to certainty, humility might be the most radical position of all.